Tiamat Legion Medusa once lived a completely different life. Formerly known as Richard Hernandez, he climbed the corporate ladder and became vice president of a major bank in Texas. But after being diagnosed with HIV in the 1990s, he said he began completely reevaluating his life and identity. Over the years, he underwent dozens of extreme body modifications to resemble a mythical dragon, including facial tattoos, horn implants, a split tongue, reshaped ears, removed teeth, and other extensive procedures. The transformation was so dramatic that old photos of him as a clean-cut executive and father look like a completely different species. In 1959, psychologist Milton Rokeach brought 3 psychiatric patients together who all believed they were Jesus Christ. He hoped that meeting 2 other Christs would break their delusions, but each simply dismissed the others as imposters or insane. The bizarre experiment later inspired the 2017 film 3 Christs starring Richard Gere. In July of 2026, 23-year-old Japanese woman Haru Inaba was walking in Japan with a friend when 29-year-old Shinsei Taguchi plunged from a 12-story apartment building and landed directly on top of her. Taguchi, the man who fell, incredibly survived the 12-story plunge, while Inaba, the woman he landed on, died hours later from hemorrhagic shock. Investigators are still trying to determine whether Taguchi fell or jumped intentionally. Here are some people who died in the worst positions imaginable. In 2012, 16-year-old Kyle Plush was pinned by the backseat of his 2004 minivan while reaching for his tennis gear. He managed to call 911, telling them he was about to die, but the dispatcher couldn't understand him. Within 30 minutes, Kyle died from asphyxia. This horrifying diagram shows how spelunker John Jones was stuck upside down in the Nutty Putty Cave for 27 hours before dying. In 1989, the body of a 26-year-old man was found stuck in a sewer tank at a primary school in Japan. He apparently squeezed through a 14-inch opening to spy on women using the toilet, but got stuck and eventually died from hypothermia. This famous mummy found in Pompeii appeared to be satisfying himself during his final moments in 79 AD. While working his shift at an Iowa supermarket, Larry Moncada went missing and wasn't found for 10 years. He'd apparently fallen headfirst into a tight gap between a freezer and a wall, and his screams were most likely drowned out by the sounds of the coolers. According to Hinduism, the Yamuna River is considered a river of heaven and is believed to cleanse the mind of sin. Every year, thousands of people drink from and bathe in the water despite its toxic foam, which is the result of poorly treated sewage that's constantly dumped directly into the river. Various chemicals in the foam are known to have many negative health effects, including skin irritation, hair loss, breathing issues, and brain damage. Earlier this year, a former model and Miss Switzerland finalist was allegedly murdered by her husband, who then reportedly dismembered her body and pureed her remains in a blender. In 1947, there is a case in Louisiana where a young man failed to die during a botched electric chair execution, so his lawyers tried to argue that he had already been executed and that it was cruel to go through it a second time. After much deliberation, the Supreme Court eventually ruled against him, and the man was successfully executed by electric chair the next year. This video shows Florida mother Breonna Williams puking after hearing the news that the body of her missing 5-year-old daughter Taylor had been discovered. Williams first reported Taylor missing in April of 2019, 7 months before her body was found. But in reality, Breonna had horribly neglected her daughter until she tragically ended up starving to death. Breonna secretly placed Taylor's body in the back of her car, wrapped her in a garbage bag, and buried her in a shallow grave. Williams pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison. Often called the world's youngest political prisoner, in 1995, Gendun Chukinima was chosen at the age of 6 as the next Panchen Lama, the second highest authority of Tibetan Buddhism and the selector of the next Dalai Lama. But 3 days after being chosen, the boy and his family were kidnapped by the Chinese government and haven't been seen nor heard from in nearly 30 years since. In 2007, this amazingly well-preserved woolly rhinoceros carcass was discovered by gold miners in Siberia. It's right around 39,000 years old. The cave lion has been extinct for over 13,000 years, but this one looks like it could have died yesterday. However, this specimen is over 50,000 years old, and scientists say it has great potential for cloning in the future. Lyuba was a 1-month-old woolly mammoth that died around 42,000 years ago. She was found with her skin and organs so well preserved that her mother's milk could still be found in her stomach. Dogor is an 18,000-year-old puppy that was found with his teeth, nose, and whiskers still intact. DNA sequencing has not been able to determine whether Dogor is a wolf or dog, as it's possible that he represents a common ancestor to both. This woman was caught on camera doing something deeply disturbing to win a chess match. Earlier this year, Russian pro chess player Amina Abakarova apparently needed a way to knock her opponent out of a tournament. So she decided to go to the extreme and poison the woman, 30-year-old Ume Osmanova, in what's being treated as an assassination attempt. Amina poured mercury from a thermometer onto the victim's chessboard before her next match and smeared it all over her side of the board with one of the pieces. Osmanova said she began feeling unwell during her match 30 minutes later, complaining of sudden severe nausea and dizziness, prompting an immediate call for medical assistance. After the security footage was reviewed by authorities, Amina had no choice but to confess to the murder attempt. Osmanova ended up making a full recovery, as the attacker was banned from future chess competitions and stripped of her previous titles. Abakarova now potentially faces several years in Russian prison for the senseless attack. There are only 20 stealth bombers in the world, but this one was caught mid-flight in a Google Maps photo. Now that's what I call a photo bomber. Here's an incredible photo of the unbroken seal of King Tut's tomb as it was found by Howard Carter in 1922. In 2013, a Finnish photographer captured the extraordinary friendship between a female gray wolf and a male brown bear. They shared their food and spent several nights together over a 10-day span before eventually parting ways. This photo shows a rare view of Grand Central Terminal with the sun shining through the windows, which is no longer possible due to surrounding skyscrapers which now block out the sun. A family photo with the Northern Lights became a one-in-a-million shot when a shooting star was also caught in the background. In 2013, the red-crested tree rat had been extinct for 113 years before one casually appeared on the handrail of an eco-lodge in Colombia. It let researchers photograph it for 2 hours before disappearing into the night, never to be seen again. Hagfish are ancient eel-shaped fish that secrete a thick slime when threatened. In 2017, a truck full of them crashed on a highway in Oregon, creating one of the most bizarre traffic jams you'll ever see. A cow from Bangladesh named Rani is the smallest adult cow in the world. He is less than 2 feet tall and only weighs about 60 pounds. The albatross has the largest wingspan of any bird and can fly for years without landing. They spend their first 6 years of life flying over the ocean without ever touching the ground. These claws of the southern cassowary are proof that birds are definitely descendants of dinosaurs. Black ivory is one of the most expensive coffee beans in the world, costing about $500 per pound. It is made from beans that can only be found in elephant poop. When she was 16 years old, Annalise Michaels started eating her own hands and drinking her own urine while suffering from seizures and delusions. But her devout Christian family denied medical reasoning and instead blamed the devil. She underwent 67 exorcisms and weighed less than 70 pounds at the time of her negligent death. If you're close enough to a nuclear blast, you'll die with no pain because the explosion will kill you faster than your brain can detect pain. This eerie 1986 Twin Towers advertisement speaks for itself. In 1989, a Los Angeles woman received a phone call from her brother-in-law saying that her ex-husband was on his way to kill her. She dialed 911 but was told nothing could be done unless he showed up at her house. Within 15 minutes, he arrived, killing her and 4 other women who were celebrating her 27th birthday. Serial killer Richard Ramirez spent nearly 24 years on California's death row before dying in 2013 from complications of B-cell lymphoma at age 53, never having been executed. In the weeks before his death, advanced liver failure reportedly turned his skin a vivid green, with several prison sources claiming he looked like a green highlighter pen. Despite being sentenced to death in 1989 for 13 murders and various other violent crimes, he died of natural causes while still awaiting execution. This box contains hundreds of knee replacements that outlived the people they were implanted in. During cremation, the human body is reduced to ashes, but artificial joints survive the furnace intact. They're removed afterward, collected like this, and often recycled into new products, with many crematories donating the proceeds to charitable causes. Poker champion Victoria Corin Mitchell once sought therapy to overcome her fear of flying, but in a cruel twist of fate, her therapist was later killed in a plane crash. The tragedy reinforced her long-standing phobia rather than curing it, and she's avoided flying ever since, often traveling by train or boat instead. In 2013, ABC News reporter Amy Rohrbach had a mammogram taken live on TV to promote breast cancer awareness. It just so happened that she did have cancer, and the procedure likely saved her life. After watching a documentary about an apartment that was once used as a torture chamber, Christina McGaw realized she was actually living in the same apartment it happened in. Famous Austrian composer and painter Arnold Schoenberg had extreme triskaidekaphobia, a fear of the number 13. He ended up dying on Friday the 13th at the age of 76. 7 plus 6 equals 13. In the history of Major League Baseball, there have only been 3 players with the first name Aurelio. Amazingly but tragically, they all died in separate car accidents. In Oregon 1970, a dead sperm whale was blown up with dynamite and chunks of its flesh were launched up to 700 feet away. One of the pieces destroyed a brand new car that was purchased during a promotion called Get a Whale of a Deal. Prioritizing anything over Kim's family is considered blasphemy. A mother recently faced jail time for trying to save her children instead of a portrait of the former president during a fire. Watching porn or reading the Bible are both crimes punishable by death in North Korea. Kim Jong-un released a list of haircuts that people in the country are allowed to have. There are 28 state-approved hairstyles that people can keep, otherwise they can expect jail time. Citizens are also forbidden from having the same name as the current president. So when Kim Jong-un took office in 2012, everyone named Kim was forced to change their name. Falling asleep while Kim speaks will fetch you a serious capital punishment. In 2015, the former defense minister was executed with an anti-aircraft gun after doing so. But hey, they got legal weed, so I mean... The beloved Bob Ross, who hosted The Joy of Painting in the 70s and 80s, was originally a master drill sergeant in the U.S. Air Force who screamed at men for a living. He was a strict, fearsome leader who became known as Bust-em-up Bobby for his toughness towards subordinates. But Bob later said he didn't actually enjoy this aspect of his job, and promised that if he ever left the military, he would never shout again. This helped him develop the calm and gentle demeanor he became famous for on his painting show. After winning Academy Awards for Best Picture and Director for the movie Gandhi in 1982, Richard Attenborough openly claimed that Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial should have won instead. Spielberg ended up casting him as John Hammond in Jurassic Park to thank him. Hawaiian pizza was invented in Canada by a Greek immigrant who was inspired by Chinese food to put a South American ingredient on an Italian dish. Hawaiian pizza then went on to become the most popular pizza in Australia. The owner of Ray's Sausages spent nearly $30,000 to combat the foul smell said to be coming from his shop. It was later discovered that the odors were actually coming from the rotting victims of his neighbor, serial killer Anthony Sowell. Replacement teeth were once made from the teeth of dead soldiers after they were scavenged from the battlefield. This is the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald sitting at the bottom of Lake Superior. The 700-foot freighter sank in 1975, taking the lives of all 29 men on board. The bodies were never recovered and are said to be well preserved even today due to the cold waters. Since 1946, the Russians believed they had a piece of Hitler's skull, serving as evidence that he died. But in the year 2000, it was discovered that the skull fragment had actually belonged to a middle-aged woman. Tom Block is a U.S. Army veteran who took a suicide vest to the face during a mission in Afghanistan. After countless surgeries and learning how to walk again, he is now helping federal law enforcement hunt down pedophiles. He hopes that one day the Captain America shield in his eye will be a symbol that children are safe. A cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people to control robot servers so that they can still make an income. An 8-year-old girl once found a 4-leaf clover and gave it to her daddy for good luck. When her father died, she found out he'd been keeping it in his pocket every day for 20 years. When the story of a 5-year-old boy fighting a rare type of cancer went viral in the UK, nearly 5,000 people stood in line for hours in the rain to see if they could be a stem cell donor. Eventually, they found one person who was the perfect match. After finishing his regular 12-mile run in 1976, Armenian swimming champion Shavarsh Karapetyan witnessed a trolleybus filled with 92 people crash into a freezing cold reservoir. Despite the sewage-infested water with poor visibility, he swam down 30 feet deep and broke the bus's back window with his legs. He then dove down 20 separate times, pulling out a total of 37 people, 20 of whom survived. Shavarsh then spent 45 days in the hospital, suffering from glass cuts, pneumonia, lung damage, and sepsis, which abruptly ended his swimming career. Reflecting on the rescue, he was once quoted saying, "It was so dark down there that I could barely see anything. One of my dives, I accidentally grabbed a seat instead of a passenger. I could have saved a life instead." That seat still haunts me in my nightmares to this day. Less than 10 years later, Shavarsh ran into a burning building, saved multiple lives, and once again spent an extended time in the hospital due to severe burns. Found in a jungle cave in 1867, a feral boy named Dina Sanichar preferred eating raw meat, had trouble standing on two legs, growled like a wolf, chewed on bones to sharpen his teeth, and never learned how to speak. He eventually became the inspiration for Mowgli in the Jungle Book. In 2016, 11-year-old Nebraska girl Lulu Gilreath was going on her first carnival ride when it quickly turned into anyone's worst nightmare. Her hair got caught in the machinery of a spinning ride at a carnival, and her scalp was almost completely torn off. The horrible accident damaged both of her eyes and nearly killed her. After World War II, Japanese General Hitoshi Imamura was sentenced to 10 years in prison after failing to control his unit, which committed horrible atrocities toward Allied soldiers. Believing that his own sentence was too light compared to the men under his command, Imamura built a replica prison in his garden where he stayed for decades until his death in 1968. Chechen girl Amina Ependeva is diagnosed with two rare genetic conditions: albinism, which makes her skin and hair extremely white, and heterochromia, in which her eyes are two completely different colors. Speaking of albinism, this extremely rare white killer whale was spotted off the coast of Alaska in 2020. The odds of this happening are about 1 in 10,000, as only 8 albino orcas have ever been seen in recorded history. Svalbard, Norway is the only visa-free zone in the world. Regardless of citizenship, anyone can live and work there for as long as they want. Oh, not the rare bison sirloin roast. I'm trying to record a video here. Sheesh. Bill Watterson, creator of Calvin and Hobbes, refused to license his characters for any toys or products, but he made an exception for a 1993 textbook called Teaching with Calvin and Hobbes that was made to help students with learning disabilities. Only around 20 copies are known to exist, and the most recent one sold for over $10,000 in 2009. In 2004, 23-year-old Florida teacher Deborah LaFave was arrested for having an illegal relationship with her 14-year-old student, in other words, raping him, after the boy's aunt caught them together and alerted his mother. What made the case even more disturbing was the public's reaction. Instead of outrage, much of the media fixated on her looks, calling her too pretty for prison, and treating the abuse like a scandalous affair rather than a crime. She pled guilty in 2005 and was sentenced to 3 years of house arrest, 7 years of probation, and lifetime registration as a sex offender, but never spent a single day in prison. These were the final texts sent by Eddie Justice as he hid in the bathroom during the 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, one of the deadliest mass shootings in American history. For 3 terrifying hours, the gunman roamed the club and executed anyone he saw, killing 49 and wounding 53. Victims tried to barricade doors, play dead, or call loved ones as SWAT teams surrounded the building. When police finally stormed in and killed him, the scene inside was pure horror. Bodies stacked all over, blood flooding the dance floor, and phones still ringing in the pockets of victims. In Connecticut, 1986, 39-year-old flight attendant Helly Crafts was brutally murdered by her husband Richard after she caught him cheating on her. He then put her body through a wood chipper and ground her remains into a lake. Richard was sentenced to 50 years in prison but has since been released. Today would have been the 50th birthday of Iranian filmmaker Babak Karamdan. In 2021, he was murdered by his parents in an honor killing for still being single at the age of 46. Babak's parents confessed to drugging and stabbing their son several times, later stating that they were proud of their actions and showed no remorse. An Indiana judge recently ruled that taxpayers will be funding the sex reassignment surgery of a vicious murderer in prison. Jonathan Richardson was convicted of fatally strangling his 11-month-old stepdaughter in 2001. The ruling states that the surgery is a medical necessity that is required to prevent a risk of serious bodily and psychological harm. With the Menendez brothers back in the spotlight, let's take a look at the true reasons why the boys killed their parents. For starters, photos were found of the boys' unclothed bodies at 6 and 8 years old, which had their heads cropped out and focused on their privates. In one of the photos, 6-year-old Eric appears to be erect. The pics were sealed in an envelope with their mother's handwriting on it saying Eric's 6th birthday. According to medical records, there was an unexplained injury to the back of Eric's throat when he was 7 years old. Dr. Carrie English testified that the type of injury was a clear indication of oral copulation in children. When Lyle was 9 years old, he told his cousin Diane Vandermolen that he was afraid his dad was going to come into his room, and that he and his dad had been touching each other down there. Diane also said that one time Jose put Lyle on a kitchen counter and prompted Lyle to jump off, and he was going to catch him. As Lyle did so, Jose backed off and let him fall to the ground, telling him that you can never trust anybody. Their cousin Andy Cano testified that when he was 10 years old, 12-year-old Eric told him that his dad was massaging his D. Eric was trying to find out if these massages were normal and eventually told Andy that these massages are beginning to hurt. Andy ended up dying at age 30 from sleeping pills, and his mother told reporters he died because he couldn't cope with the incarceration of his cousins. After Andy passed away, his mother found a letter that 17-year-old Eric had written to him a few months before the murders. In the letter, Eric mentions the non-stop abuse. Mom isn't doing good. I don't know why she puts up with dad's shit. At times, I wish I could talk to her about things, you know? But the way she worships him and tells him everything, I'm just so afraid she'll tell him whatever I say. I just can't risk it. So I'm stuck here alone. I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. He's so overweight that I just can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle. Am I a serious wimpus? I don't know, I'll make it through this. I can handle it, Andy. I need to stop thinking about it. Two more cousins, Kathleen and Alan, spent summers at the Menendez household and said the father would often take the boys to their bedroom and forbid the cousins from going down the hall. The cousins also testified in court that Jose and the boys often showered together, even when they were teenagers. Alan and Kathleen said they could hear cries and moans coming from the bedroom, but Kitty Menendez would turn up the TV volume really high so that they couldn't hear what was happening. At the age of 14, Lyle Menendez wrote a school essay called I Will Change Your Verdict, about a man who's sentenced to death for killing a child molester to protect a 12-year-old boy. Just before writing the essay, Lyle found out for the first time that his father had been molesting 12-year-old Eric. The essay reads, "A man awaits his turn on the electric chair. You, the average citizens of America, put that man there. Now you can taste his death. You hope it hurts and is slow. Do you know what drove him to do it? You never even gave him a chance to talk. He only wanted to say a few things, but no, not you. You couldn't let this thing talk as if he had rights or feelings. You only looked at the evidence, smiled, and yelled guilty. Why, my friend? Why?" At that same age of 14, Lyle began losing his hair, an indication of the stress and psychological turmoil he endured as a child. He also continued playing with stuffed animals and wetting the bed well into his teenage years due to the lasting effects of the abuse. After the murders, the brothers were both evaluated in jail by some of the best child abuse and trauma experts in the country, and they all concluded that both the boys had been severely traumatized, molested, and abused. Dozens of other witnesses, including friends, family members, neighbors, teachers, and coaches, supported these claims throughout the first trial. But despite all this, the first trial ended with 2 deadlocked juries, since all of the men reportedly raised their hands in favor of first-degree murder, while none of the women raised theirs. In the retrial, the judge didn't allow any testimony about the sexual abuse claims, and both brothers were sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Several jurors from the second trial later revealed that they never would have voted in favor of first-degree murder if they had known about the detailed history of their awful abuse. The double rainbow guy Paul Vasquez was a constant uploader on YouTube and created thousands of videos. Even though he died of an illness in 2020 at the age of 57, he scheduled 15 years of uploads in advance before he died, leaving his channel still very active now, 4 years after his death. This is the tragic transformation of Florida man Robert Hardister, who was arrested 9 separate times for various infractions over an 8-year span. British doctor Thomas Kwan recently attempted to murder his mother's partner in one of the strangest ways possible. He disguised himself as a nurse and knocked on the man's door to offer him a free COVID jab. But instead of the vaccine, he put an unidentified poison in the syringe and injected it into his stepdad's arm. The next day, the man experienced serious pain and blistering in his shoulder, prompting him to go to the hospital and having part of his arm removed. He ended up surviving the bizarre attack, and Kwan was charged with attempted murder. In the year 2000, pro wrestler Bam Bam Bigelow, who was known for his iconic Flames outfit and head tattoo, received second-degree burns over 40% of his body while rescuing 3 children from a house fire. He spent 10 days recovering in the hospital after saving their lives. In 2017, a 9-foot-long alligator clamped onto the leg of 10-year-old Florida girl Juliana Osa. But luckily, she remembered a life-saving trick she recently learned at Gatorland theme park. She stuck her fingers up the gator's nose and it instantly released her leg and took off. For the first few years of his life, Mason McDeed cried constantly from his issues with cerebral palsy. His parents struggled to find any way to comfort him until one day his dad put on some Metallica. Soon he noticed Mason had immediately stopped crying and fell asleep, which would work every time he played heavy metal music thereafter. Ever since this revelation, Mason has attended over 500 metal concerts with his dad. This elderly couple just agreed to be euthanized. Former Royal Air Force engineer Pete Scott and his retired nurse wife Christine have signed up for a double SUI pod in Switzerland, where voluntary assisted SUI has been legal since 1942. The pair made the decision after 80-year-old Christine was diagnosed with early-stage vascular dementia. Married for 46 years, they plan to die peacefully together in each other's arms with the help of the sarcophagus pod. This controversial death capsule works by replacing air with 100% nitrogen, which quickly renders the occupant unconscious and fully stops their breathing within 10 minutes, resulting in a swift, painless death. As stated by Pete, we have had long, happy, healthy, fulfilled lives, but here we are in old age and it does not do nice things to you. The idea of watching the slow degradation of Chris's mental abilities is horrific to me. Obviously, I would care for her to the point I could not, but she has nursed enough people with dementia throughout her career to be adamant that she wants to remain in control of herself and her life. Assisted dying gives her that opportunity, and I would not want to go on living without her. In 1998, Wu-Tang member Old Dirty Bastard witnessed a car accident from the window of his Brooklyn recording studio. He quickly ran outside and organized onlookers to help lift the car off of a trapped 4-year-old girl. Using a fake name, ODB later visited the girl frequently in the hospital while she recovered from first-degree burns. When the Red Army captured Hitler's bunker in May of 1945, the only person they found alive was the mechanic Johannes Henschel. After everyone else had either fled or taken their own lives, Henschel had stayed behind to keep the field hospital in the building above supplied with water and power. During the Las Vegas shooting, 29-year-old Marine veteran Taylor Winston's military training kicked into action. He quickly stole someone's truck to drive any wounded victims to the hospital. He and his girlfriend made 2 trips as the shooting took place, picking up the most critically injured victims, and his heroic action likely saved over a dozen lives. Archaeologists excavating an ancient Roman sewer in Bulgaria stumbled upon this statue of Hermes that remains incredibly intact after 2,000 years. Measuring 6'8" and only missing part of its right arm, the statue is believed to have been intentionally buried underground by local residents after an earthquake rocked the region in 388 CE. A Corinthian helmet from the Battle of Marathon was found with the warrior's skull still inside. The Pons Fabricius is the oldest surviving bridge from ancient Rome that's still in use to this day. The bridge is still in its original location and condition, as its last major repairs took place in 23 BC. This olive tree on the island of Crete has a trunk that's 15 feet in diameter and is likely 2,900 years old. That means this tree has survived through the writing of the Odyssey, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, and the birth of Christ, and amazingly still produces olives more than 2,000 years later. After his death in 2018, it was revealed that Stan Lee suffered from repeated elder abuse from various handlers, associates, and members of his family. After his wife passed away in 2018, Stan's inner circle reportedly alienated him from the rest of his friends and family, forged his signatures to extort his money, and dragged him to conventions when he was exhausted and clearly had no idea what was happening.
Stanley, S-T-A-N-L-E.
On one occasion, a former business associate went to Stan's personal nurse with a forged document, giving him authority to order a blood sample from Stan. He then told the nurse to fill as many vials as she could, and she agreed, taking so much blood that Stan reportedly felt dizzy. The stolen blood was then put into pens that Stan used to sign autographs, making them far more valuable since they contained his DNA. In a separate incident, while on a podcast about Lee's final days, his former business manager Brad Herman claimed that Stan's daughter JC once erupted in anger, grabbed his father by the neck, and slammed his head into the back of a chair. Despite a contusion on his head, Stan allegedly begged Herman not to go to police in order to protect his daughter. Molly Shattuck made news in 2005 after becoming the oldest NFL cheerleader on record at the age of 38. But 9 years later, her accolade was tainted when she was convicted of repeatedly graping her son's 15-year-old friend. Her son apparently helped get them together by texting his friend, "Call my mom, she thinks you're hot." In 2021, NFL cornerback Philip Adams shot and killed 5 people in their South Carolina home before turning the gun on himself. An autopsy later revealed that Adams had been suffering an unusually severe case of CTE from playing football, possibly contributing to his sudden violent behavior. In 1983, star running back Joe Delaney sacrificed his life while attempting to save 3 children from drowning. Despite being unable to swim, Delaney told a bystander, "I've got to save those kids. If I don't come up, get someone." His number is unofficially retired by the team, and a statue was put up in his hometown. In 2021, a woman from Morocco gave birth to the world's only set of nonuplets, 9 babies born at the same time. The 5 girls and 4 boys were born via C-section at just 30 weeks, each only weighing between 1 and 2 pounds, but all miraculously survived. What's even more incredible is that they were the result of a naturally conceived pregnancy. For about 1 month every year, baby seals gathered to play in this waterfall north of Kaikoura, New Zealand. It's the only place in the world where anything like this is known to occur. If my eyes don't deceive me, I believe we're looking at a deliciously rare Kansas City strip. In 2015, blogger Andy George made a chicken sandwich completely from scratch. He grew his own veggies, traveled to collect ocean water to make salt, milked a cow to make butter and cheese, killed a chicken, and grew his own wheat for flour to make the bread. He spent 6 months and $1,500 and said the sandwich was okay. But in World War I, a lot of young boys had to lie about their age, but 7-year-old Serbian soldier Momcilo Gavrić was by far the youngest. His mother, father, grandmother, 3 sisters, and 4 brothers were all murdered by opposing forces, leaving him with no choice but to join the Royal Serbian Army for a shot at revenge. Gavrić fought in multiple trench battles, was wounded several times, and promoted to corporal by the time he turned 8. After the war, he reunited with surviving members of his family and lived to the age of 86. During World War II, it was common for soldiers to keep photos of their loved ones under transparent grips on their pistols. They were known as sweetheart grips. Japanese man Hajime Fuji volunteered to be a kamikaze pilot but was denied acceptance because he had a wife and 2 young kids. So to honor his wish, his wife drowned their 2 young girls before doing the same to herself. Fuji was then accepted as a kamikaze pilot, meaning his death in May of 1945. In 1987, police responded to Illinois father Russell Dardine's home after he failed to report to work. There they found the dead bodies of his pregnant wife Ruby and their son, who were both victims of a brutal beating. Ruby was beaten so badly that she prematurely went into labor, and even the newborn baby was beaten to death as well. Initially, Keith was the most obvious suspect until his body was found shot dead in a nearby field with his genitals mutilated. Serial killer Tommy Lynn Sells later confessed to the murders but was never formally charged, so the case remains cold. In 1980, John Favera, the neighbor of mafia boss John Gotti, accidentally ran over and killed the mobster's 12-year-old son Frank. Although it was ruled an accident, Favera went missing that same year and was never seen nor heard from again. Former mobster Charles Carneglia later claimed that Favera was abducted, tortured, and slowly dismembered with a chainsaw while he was still alive. His remains were then stuffed inside a barrel filled with concrete and dumped in the ocean. In 2004, 11-year-old Japanese schoolgirl Natsumi Tsuji led her best friend into an empty classroom where she promised to show her a new game. That's when Natsumi blindfolded the girl and ruthlessly slit her throat with a box cutter until she bled to death. Natsumi then returned to her classroom covered in blood while still holding the murder weapon. Spanish woman Aurora Rodriguez conceived her daughter as an experiment to try and create the perfect human. Her daughter Hildegard was able to read at age 2, spoke 4 languages by age 8, joined law school at 13, and became a professor there when she turned 18. But when Hildegard eventually tried to gain independence from her mother, Aurora concluded that the experiment was a failure and shot the girl dead while she was sleeping. Aurora was later infamously quoted saying, "The sculptor, after discovering the most minimal imperfection in his work, destroys it." She was sentenced to 26 years in prison, spending most of them at a mental asylum. In honor of Shark Week, here are some morbid facts about shark attacks. In 2015, a man swimming near Huntington Beach, California was suddenly struck in the back by a great white. After making it ashore and going to the hospital, doctors assured him that he'd be okay. But upon seeing his x-rays, they realized he had a cancerous tumor that they were just barely able to remove in time. In 1993, a surfer named John Doyle was attacked by a great white shark off the coast of West Africa. He made it to shore unable to walk, only to be mauled by a pride of lions on his way to the hospital. More than 250 stitches later, he survived both attacks and made a full recovery. In 2001, an 8-year-old boy was attacked by a 7-foot bull shark while standing in knee-deep water near Pensacola, Florida. The shark had bitten off one of the boy's arms before his uncle pulled it away and wrestled it to shore. After a park ranger shot the shark in the head, the boy's uncle retrieved the severed arm, put it on ice, and drove it to the hospital where it was successfully reattached. A killer whale off the coast of Washington once started the trend of wearing a dead salmon on its head. Other orcas in the pod started doing it too, and soon enough other pods in the area had picked up on the fad. The behavior had faded by the next summer, making it one of the first cultural trends ever observed in nature. Here's an amazing video of a rat using a stick to set off a trap so that it can safely snag a treat. As a result of all the rats we've killed with traps over the centuries, we've basically forced them to start evolving toward the usage of tools. This thoughtful otter at a Chinese aquarium is more helpful and productive than most people you'll ever work with. This is just one example of why otters are said to be one of the smartest animals in the water. That's adorable. The U.S. Navy's Marine Mammals program has started teaching California sea lions how to play video games. The program has trained over 100 sea lions and dolphins in underwater tasks that they can perform better than humans. These games seek to improve not only their cognitive function, but also their mental health and happiness since they genuinely enjoy playing them. Being 100 feet in length, the American Dream is the longest car ever built. The party limo includes a swimming pool, mini golf course, a helipad, and can fit up to 75 people inside. Known as the Denmark Strait Cataract, the largest waterfall in the world can actually be found underwater. Varying temperatures cause colder, denser liquid to flow down an underwater slope of nearly 10,000 feet. Avtar Singh Mauni is the proud owner of the world's largest and heaviest turbine. Weighing in at 100 pounds with a length of over 2,000 feet, it takes him more than 6 hours to put on. German surfer Sebastian Studner rode this record-breaking 115-foot wave in Portugal 2018. Most professional surfers would never dare to ride a wave this size due to the high risk of dying if they were to fall. While it's made up of over 40,000 different trees, a 106-acre grove in Utah named Pando is identified as a single organism. The genetically identical trees produce asexually and are connected by a massive underground root system that could be anywhere between 80,000 and 1,000,000 years old. In 2012, Anthony Hensley was kayaking in Illinois when he went to check on a swan that was becoming aggressive toward him, causing him to fall out of his kayak. As Anthony tried swimming back to shore, the swan kept relentlessly attacking him until the man sadly drowned. In the 1920s, there was a health drink called Radithor that literally contained radium mixed with water. Its manufacturer claimed the radioactive drink not only provided energy, but also cured a host of ailments including cancer and depression. But the drink was eventually pulled from shelves in 1932 when it started causing its customers' jaws to fall off. While working as a doctor in Canada, John Schneeberger drugged and sexually assaulted one of his patients as well as his own stepdaughter. But he was able to evade arrest for years by implanting a plastic tube in his arm that was filled with another man's blood. The Burnden Park disaster was a human crush that occurred in 1946 at Burnden Park Football Stadium in England. Overcrowding resulted in the deaths of 33 people and injuries to hundreds more. The bodies were then left on the sidelines covered with coats, and the game was later resumed and finished with the corpses still on the field. In 1912, a French tailor named Franz Reichelt wanted to prove to the people of Paris that he could design an overcoat that doubled as a parachute. So he gathered an audience including journalists and film recorders before jumping off the Eiffel Tower with his new invention. As you might have guessed, the parachute failed to deploy and Reichelt plummeted 200 feet to the ground, becoming the first person in history whose death was recorded on film. Despite its reputation, no one has died from a confirmed spider bite in Australia since 1979, but hundreds have died as a result of being surprised and startled by them, such as while driving. Tamika Hargrave died while cheating on her husband with her car mechanic. They were getting it on inside of a closed garage while the car was still running, and both eventually passed out from carbon monoxide. Their unclothed bodies were eventually found by Tamika's husband. A Viking leader named Sigurd the Mighty died in such a ridiculous way that the story's been passed down for over 1,000 years. He apparently strapped the head of his defeated foe to his horse's saddle, causing the teeth to graze against his leg as he rode off. Within a few days, Sigurd had succumbed to an awful leg infection. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was shot in West Germany in 1970. Producers for the film had a hard time finding little people to cast as Oompa Loompas since so many of them had been killed off by Nazis during the Holocaust. These photos show what 4 years of fighting in World War II did to the face of a young Soviet man. As the museum caption reads, "The first face looks at you, the second face looks through you." The youngest serviceman in the U.S. military during the war was 12-year-old Calvin Graham. He lied about his age when he enlisted, and his real age wasn't discovered until after he was wounded. Japanese man Hajime Fuji volunteered to be a kamikaze but was denied acceptance because he had a wife and 2 young kids. So to honor his wish, his wife drowned their 2 little girls before doing the same to herself. Fuji was then accepted as a kamikaze pilot, meeting his death in May of 1945. Towards the end of the war, future President Dwight Eisenhower predicted that people would try to deny that the Holocaust ever happened. So he ordered his men to take as many graphic photos as possible to prevent this from happening. Earlier this year, Minnesota man Chris Qualley entered the Guinness Book of World Records for growing the largest carrot in history. The vegetable weighed a whopping 22.4 pounds, and Chris says he plans on growing the largest pumpkin or tomato next. The golden crowned flying fox is a fruit-eating megabat found only in the Philippines. With a wingspan of up to 6 feet, it's the largest species of bat in the world. Standing at 6'6" and weighing 3,200 pounds, a Belgian stallion named Brooklyn Supreme may have been the most massive horse in history. Growing up to 12 feet in height, the prehistoric-looking corpse flower is the largest flower on Earth. It only blooms once every 7 years and is known to smell like rotting flesh to attract beetles and flies for pollination. Almost 3 times taller than Mount Everest, Olympus Mons on Mars is the largest mountain in our solar system. The weak gravity on Mars allows for mountains to grow higher than on any other planet. Extinct for around 10,000 years, Argentavis was the largest bird ever discovered. With a 23-foot wingspan, it was twice the size of any bird alive today. Dating back to 1100 AD, the Zhangong Patriarch is a gold-painted papier-mâché statue that was stolen from a Chinese temple in 1995. Just a couple years ago, researchers scanned it and discovered the piece contained the mummified body of a famous Chinese monk. Here's an 18th century ivory carving that depicts the toothworm, a demon from hell that people used to believe was responsible for cavities and toothaches. Shakabra. Here's an ancient Roman bronze sculpture of a hand giving the hang loose gesture made around the 2nd or 3rd century CE. Just last month, a 30-foot-long Native American canoe was discovered in a lake in North Carolina. It's estimated to be at least 1,000 years old. Thanks to LiDAR technology, archaeologists have been able to peel back the rainforests of Calakmul, Mexico, revealing an ancient Mayan city that was nearly 4 times the size of Manhattan around the year 700 AD. The Lion of Lucerne was built in 1821 as a memorial for the Swiss guards who were massacred during the French Revolution. Mark Twain himself described it as the most mournful and moving piece of stone in the entire world. In 1961, Soviet doctor Leonid Rogozov was working in Antarctica when he realized his appendix was about to burst. He knew he would die if it wasn't removed immediately, but he was the only doctor on the expedition. So he ended up performing the surgery on himself and miraculously made a full recovery. In the 1500s, Mapuche warrior Galvarino had both his hands cut off as punishment for defying the Spanish. He then returned home, raised an army, and fought with blades tied to the stubs of his arms. Liviu Lebrescu was a Holocaust survivor who grew up to become a scientist, engineer, and professor at Virginia Tech. During the mass shooting in 2007, he held the door of his classroom while the gunman continuously shot through the door, sacrificing his own life to save the lives of his 22 students. In 1968, radical feminist Valerie Solanas attempted to assassinate Andy Warhol. She shot him in the liver, spleen, lungs, and stomach, leaving him in a corset for the rest of his life. The woman turned out to be a schizophrenic who called for the extermination of males to create a utopia for women. According to a 1996 Super Mario manga, one-up mushrooms grow from the bodies of dead Marios, perpetuating the cycle of life and death. In 1971, Fleetwood Mac had to cancel a sold-out show when their guitarist Jeremy Spencer suddenly went missing. He was found a few weeks later with shabby clothes and a shaven head after joining the Children of God, a cult founded by a pedophile that was responsible for the widespread abuse of thousands of children. The frilled shark is a species of deep-water fish that is rarely seen by humans. Often called a living fossil, the shark is believed to have long been linked to mythical sea serpents. The extremely rare viper dogfish was only discovered in 1986. They're a bioluminescent species of shark and look like something straight out of a horror movie. Only discovered in 1976, the megamouth shark is an extremely rare species of freshwater shark. Less than 100 of them have ever been seen or caught by humans. Known for its protrusible jaw and nail-like teeth, the goblin shark has only been seen about 50 times since its discovery in 1897. The Greenland shark is believed to be the longest living vertebrate animal in the world. They can live up to 400 years old and don't reach puberty until the age of 150. North Korean hospitals are so underfunded that many operations are performed without anesthesia or antibiotics. To make matters worse, the same needles are often used for different patients, so a lot of people exit the hospital in worse shape than when they entered. North Korean law imposes a 3-generation punishment rule. If one person commits a crime, their entire bloodline, including the grandparents, parents, and children, are all sent to prison. When South Korea stopped sending fertilizer to North Korea, the country faced a national shortage. So every year since, citizens have to reach a quota of poop that they must donate to the state. North Koreans are raised to believe that their leaders are gods who can read their thoughts. This, along with extremely limited internet access, make it very difficult for citizens to realize how oppressive their government truly is. After Vincent van Gogh shot himself in the chest with a revolver, he managed to walk home and see 2 doctors. But since neither of them was a surgeon, they couldn't remove the bullet, and they left him alone in his room smoking a pipe. He died the next morning with his brother by his side, who said Vincent's last words were, "The sadness will last forever." A girl who grew up in Auschwitz drew this picture of home while living in a residence for disturbed children. When Elvia Cortez went to feed her cows one morning, 4 men quickly approached her and put a bomb around her neck. They left a tape asking for $7,500 and threatened to set off the bomb if she tried to disarm it. Elvia called the police and a bomb tech showed up later in the day to remove it. A few hours later, the bomb suddenly went off and killed both of them, and the men responsible were never found. In the year 2000, this man was given a 13-year sentence for armed robbery, but the state of Missouri somehow forgot to put him in prison. They only noticed the error 13 years later when it was time for his release. After being apprehended, he was officially freed when the courts determined he was a changed man. In Brazilian prisons, inmates can shorten their sentences by reading. For every book they read and write a report on, their sentences can be reduced by up to 4 days. The world's most wanted hacker was eventually hacked and arrested because his password was his cat's name plus 123. In 2018, the world's most expensive bottle of vodka was stolen in Denmark. The bottle was made from silver and gold and had a diamond-encrusted cap, making it worth $1.3 million. Miraculously, it was found empty on a construction site just a few days later. 99 million years ago, a young dinosaur got its tail stuck in amber, a death trap for a small creature. The sparrow-sized juvenile could have danced in the palm of your hand. This praying mantis has been stuck in this amber sample for about 12 million years. This prehistoric hell ant has been stuck biting its prey for 99 million years. Hell ants are some of the earliest known ants, but died out with the dinosaurs at the end of the Cretaceous period. While it looks like it died 5 minutes ago, this gecko has been trapped in amber for about 54 million years. This incredible fossil contains a prehistoric parasite that was trying to escape its host as it was drowning in amber. And finally, this ancient ancestor to spiders is about 100 million years old. It's such a unique specimen that it even has a tail. 1663, part of the fossilized skeleton of a woolly rhinoceros was dug up in Germany. Nicknamed the Magdeburg unicorn, it resulted in one of the worst fossil reconstructions in human history. This was the sample case used by a neon salesman circa 1935. Dating back at least 12,000 years, Iran's ancient village of Maymun is said to be a primary human residence in the Iranian plateau. Close to 200 families still live in the hand-dug homes within the rocks, some of which have been inhabited for over 3,000 years. After 25 years of dealing with a strange dip in the floor beneath his couch, a man from Plymouth, England finally decided to investigate. After digging down into his home's foundation, he found a 33-foot deep medieval well with a 500-year-old sword inside. The sword's super lame looking, I wasn't going to include it, but there you go. This photo was taken at a zoo in India just moments before this white tiger dragged this man into his den and mauled him to death. The man apparently climbed up the fence to get a better view of the tiger, but ended up slipping and falling into the cage. Flat earther and daredevil Mike Hughes died in 2020 after crash landing his rocket he made to prove that the Earth is actually flat. In 2011, 3 teenagers from Utah stood on some train tracks to take a selfie next to a passing train. But they didn't hear the second train coming from the other direction, and all 3 were killed almost instantly. In 2011, a New York man died while riding his motorcycle at a helmet law protest. Medical experts said the only reason he died was because he wasn't wearing a helmet. In 2022, personal trainer Tom Mansfield accidentally overdosed on caffeine. He apparently miscalculated the amount of powder he needed and drank the equivalent of 200 cups of coffee in one.